You so much for tuning in. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Q&A Monday. I am so sorry I'm a little late today. I was having some technical difficulties doing my best to get the computers and cameras set up correctly. So I apologize for being late. I apologize for being tardy to the party. Hi, guys. If you don't know who I am, my name is Crystal. I'm a registered nurse and an international board certified lactation consultant, breastfeeding mama of 2, and owner and founder of Milky Mama. We provide amazing breastfeeding support in the form of live chats like these. If you're local to Southern California, we also offer a free breastfeeding support group in our Rancho Cucamonga office, and we also offer breastfeeding classes and tons of things. So if you're local to SoCal, check out our services link on our website to register, because spaces do fill up quickly. And we also have an amazing line of products to help support you on your breastfeeding journey. So that's a little bit about us. If you've been here before, please let us know if this is your first time here, or if you have joined us for a chat before, and let us know where you're watching from. I always am interested to see where our mamas are coming from, whether it's from around the country or around the world. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I got some really good questions from you guys already, and I wanted to go ahead and take a moment to answer some of your questions. You guys have some great questions already. Hi, guys. Hey, guys. First time here in Los Angeles. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You guys are in Texas, in Arizona. Oh my gosh, all over. Sierra is in Carlsbad, Arkansas, Chicago, Alabama. You guys are all across the entire globe. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let me make sure we're all charged up here. From Hawaii. I was just there. I was, sorry guys. I was just in Hawaii a couple weeks ago, so yay. Okay, guys, let me go ahead and get some questions. Somebody's from Canada. Oh my gosh, stay tuned. We are going to be launching in Canada very soon. Yay, all over. Perfect. Let's go ahead and get some questions answered. Let's see. RMZ Sweet Babies is saying she's thinking of getting on birth control, but she's scared it will stop your supply. What do you recommend? So in regards to birth control, you know, I definitely feel that that's definitely a personal decision between you and your family and your partner. But I do want you guys to realize that any hormonal change, whether it's caused by pregnancy, your period, you know, anything that affects your hormones, even hormonal birth control, can affect your supply. So while some moms do great on low dose hormones like the Mirena or the mini pill, other moms notice that their supply decreases. So because we don't know how each mom will react to these hormones, I generally recommend that you avoid hormonal birth control if possible, just because we don't know. So I always usually recommend a form of non-hormonal birth control, such as the copper IUD, the Paragard, natural family planning, where you're basically tracking your ovulation and your fertility. Condoms, of course, there's spermicides. There are other ways to prevent you from getting pregnant without the use of hormones. So if that's possible, and if if that works well within your family planning, then I recommend that. Yeah, for Farron says that she got the non-hormonal IUD Paragard and she loves it. Yeah, and it really takes a bit of trial and error to figure out which method works best for you and your family. It's definitely a personal decision, but it is my job to empower and educate and let you guys know all of your options so that you can make a informed decision that's best for you and your family. Okay? Great, let's go ahead and take a question from Facebook. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So if you see me looking one way or another, I'm not looking off into the sunset. I'm actually in my office. I'm just looking at the other comments that are coming in. Let's see. This is a question from Nikki Martin. She says, my daughter is 8 months and I exclusively breastfeed, no bottles, but recently I feel like my boobs feel super empty. She seems to be getting enough, but I don't even get as much when I use. So it's very common for your breasts not to be full or not to feel full as you progress during your breastfeeding journey. In fact, if you're noticing that after the first couple of weeks, you're still getting engorged or super full, chances are you either have an oversupply of milk or you're not emptying your breast often enough. Remember, guys, an emptier breast makes more milk. So if you're constantly leaving milk in your breast, then you're telling your body that, hey, you're making too much, I need you to decrease it a bit. So it's very normal for you to not feel full as you progress in your breastfeeding journey. Okay, hope that helps. Also keep in mind that as long as baby's getting or having 6 to 8 wet diapers per day, baby's stool is nice and soft, and baby is meeting developmental milestones, having steady weight gain, all of those are signs that baby is getting enough milk. Okay? I hope that helps. My 18-month-old will not accept any other milk besides breast milk, and I want to wean. What do you suggest? Help. So if you're ready to wean, you don't have to go to a milk product. You can just give baby water. As long as baby's getting their nutrients and vitamins from another source, of course, like food. But you don't have to switch to cow's milk. You can switch to almond milk if your baby doesn't have any allergies. Or soy milk if you like soy, but it doesn't have to be dairy milk. So there are other options. Water is also a great option. Let's see. You guys have some really good questions. Let's see. Be aware of the mini pill. Yeah, Jamie says beware of the mini pill. But you know, don't get me wrong. There are lots of moms that have great success with the mini pill. And then there are also some moms that notice that when they take it, their supply decreases. It just depends on how sensitive to hormones you are. I'm super sensitive to hormones, so I can't do hormonal birth control, unfortunately. But if you can tolerate it, some moms do just fine on it. I'm trying to make sure I'm charging here. Sorry, guys, but I'm not charging. Okay, let's see here. It tanked my supply. How many times a day do you recommend to pump? So I recommend that you empty your breast, and it doesn't have to be by pumping, you guys. Some moms don't respond well to a pump. Some moms, you know, do better with hand expression or using a manual pump. But whatever method you use for emptying your breast, I recommend that you do it about every 3 hours. That's just the rule of thumb. And that all depends on your magic number and your breast milk storage capacity. Some moms with larger storage capacities can go a little longer between emptying their breast without affecting their supply. And moms with small storage capacities might have to empty their breast more frequently. So it all depends on you and your body. But in general, I do recommend that you empty your breasts around every 3 hours. Great question. Let's see. I have another question coming in. This is a question from Heather Lynn. She says, how do you make sure that your baby latches well? So a latch should be comfortable. Latching should not be painful. In the beginning of your breastfeeding journey, it's normal to be tender or sore or to have some discomfort because I don't know about you, but before I had a baby, I didn't have anyone sucking on my breasts for every 2 hours or so. If you did, if that's your life, then I'm jealous. But that's not, I haven't had anyone, stimulating or sucking on my breasts for, that frequently. Because of that, it's very common that your breasts can be tender and sore in the beginning. But that is very different than pain. However, pain is subjective. Some moms say, it's really painful. Some moms can tolerate it. So What I can say is that it shouldn't last the duration of your breastfeeding journey, and your nipple should not be compressed or pinched, looking like a tube of lipstick after you unlatch baby. Those are all signs that baby is latched properly. Additionally, when you're latching baby, I don't have my fake baby here. Darn it. But when you're latching baby, you always want to make sure that baby's belly is touching your belly. So I always like belly to belly or tummy to mommy. That way baby's aligned. And then additionally, you want to make sure that baby's latching onto your areola or breast tissue and not just your nipple, okay? I do understand that areola sizes are very different. So I don't expect baby to have your entire areola in his or her mouth, because I know that when I was breastfeeding, my areolas grew like to the size of like a plate or like my head. They were so huge, and it's impossible for a little baby to get the entire areola in their mouth. What's most important is that they're latched onto your areola tissue, not just your nipple, because that's where all your milk ducts are, and that's where you really want them compressing. And that can help you achieve a nice, pain-free, comfortable latch. If you're having trouble with getting a good latch, even if you've tried all these tips and baby looks good, and looks like they're positioned correctly, I'd have an IBCLC just double check and assist you with latching. If you need help finding an IBCLC in your area, please reach out to us. We have great relationships with tons of them, and we can certainly refer one for you, okay? Hope that helps. Okay, let's see. Let's take another question. This is a great question. Angelica says, could it be possible to not pump during the night? And the answer is yes. I completely understand how valuable and precious sleep is, and I encourage you to make sure that you're getting plenty of rest. On the other hand, I want you to realize that your body usually makes the most milk in the middle of the night. So if you're having supply issues and you're trying to increase your supply or make sure that you're emptying your breast as effectively as possible, I do recommend waking up at least once to pump in the middle of the night. But if baby's doing just fine and your supply is fine and you're not trying to increase your supply in any way, you can usually safely go throughout the night without sleeping. Of course, if you're noticing that you're waking up super engorged or that your supply is being affected, then you may want to adjust your schedule. So the key is anytime you make any changes to your breastfeeding or pumping schedule, that you just listen to your body and pay attention to baby and make sure that baby's getting enough milk and that your supply is adjusting well. If you do notice any changes between the amount of wet diapers baby has or the amount of milk that you're pumping or that you're able to express, then you may need to make some adjustments. Let's see here. What if my baby doesn't latch? Am I only able to pump? Yes, you are. That's the beauty of being a mom, and the beauty of breastfeeding is that there are so many different ways to do it. There are so many journeys, and every journey is precious. Every journey is beautiful, and there's tons of ways to do it. So whatever works best for you and your baby and your family will support you, and I encourage you to do that. Alrighty. Let's see. You guys have some great questions today. And I'm also really impressed to see that when a mom asks the question, you guys are so quick to answer and you guys already know the answers. So that means that you guys are listening and I taught you well. I'm so excited. This is a great question. Shelby says, I'm almost 6 months postpartum and I'm exclusively breastfeeding and my period hasn't come back. Is that normal? It's very normal. It's actually common for most moms to not get their period as long as they're exclusively breastfeeding around the clock. Once you start introducing a bottle or solids or a pacifier or even pumping, it can stimulate your period to come back. However, every mom is different. Some moms get their period, at 6 weeks postpartum, and some moms don't get it until they completely wean. So yes, all of that is normal. Again, every journey is different. Every journey is your own. So it's very normal for you not to have your period while you're breastfeeding. But it may come back and it may not. It may come back after you wean. Okay, let's see. My son is 7 months and is weaning. I'm still breastfeeding, but how do I know he's still getting enough milk? Also on no period since I've had him. Is that normal? So yes, that is normal. And also I want you to realize that if baby's usually under 1 to 2 years old, it's very rare for baby to wean on their own. So if you feel like your baby's weaning, it could be a nursing strike. Or it could just be maybe baby has an ear infection or something that makes him not want to nurse. He could be teething. So at 7 months, I would say it's pretty rare that baby weans on their own. Some moms mistake a nursing strike for weaning, and then they just stop breastfeeding, and then they give formula, and then their breastfeeding journey ends. But in most cases, at 7 months old, weaning is very rare. Self-weaning, of course. But you can make sure that baby is getting enough milk by, again, monitoring those diaper outputs. As long as baby's having 6 to 8 wet diapers per day and having nice soft stool and developing well, then all is well. Meg Cooper says, how do you balance breastfeeding and introducing solid foods? That's a wonderful question. I always recommend to breastfeed first. For the first year of life, breast milk should be baby's primary food source. After you initiate solids aren't for replacing breastfeeding. They're actually to complement breastfeeding. So it's really designed to develop baby's palate, new tastes, new textures, things like that. It's not meant to replace any feeding sessions. So always nurse first. If you nurse first, baby will empty the breast effectively, and then they can have as many solids, a couple bites or so, as they'd like. If you give solids first, baby may be full on the solids so that when they go to nurse, they'll empty your breast less effectively, which is why we start noticing that downward trend in milk production once solids are initiated. So for the first year at least, I always recommend to breastfeed first so that baby can get plenty of breast milk and your supply can be maintained, and then you can offer solids after. Hope that helps. If you're having trouble with baby taking solids, one tip that I have is to mix some of your breast milk into the solid. That way they can have a nice familiar taste and familiar smell, which will make them encouraged to take it. Additionally, you don't have to start with cereal. Cereal has very little nutritional value. I usually recommend just jumping right into a nice green veggie or fruit. I guess my favorite fruit is avocado. I do recommend that you avoid the sweet fruits until after baby gets used to the veggies. But I love avocado for first food because it is full of nice healthy fats for baby's brain development. It's also the perfect texture and really bland, so it's not too overpowering for baby, and you can mix it with your breast milk, and usually babies love it, as long as they don't have any allergies to avocado, of course. All right. Miss Kennedy says, I'm back to work and I pump every 4 hours. I can pump 3 to 4 ounces out of one breast and the other breast only 3 ounces. Is that okay? Yes, we get this question a lot. It sounds like you have a little bit of a slacker boob. I wouldn't even say slacker because they're pretty even, but it's completely common. I think every breastfeeding mom in the history of breastfeeding moms has a slacker boob. It's common. In most cases, it doesn't have to be corrected because usually your other breast will compensate. And as long as baby's doing just fine, you don't need to do anything about it. So that's perfectly fine. You're doing a great job. Let's see. More questions. Why don't... This is a great question. Kristen says, why don't I respond to a breast pump unless I am simultaneously hand expressing while pumping? So there are some moms that don't respond to the breast pump. It is a different action and a different feel than, of course, nursing. But what I do find is that if moms really aren't responding well, it could be that their flange is the incorrect size and it's not providing the correct type of stimulation for them. So if your flange is too large, it won't stimulate the nipple to have your letdown, and it won't compress the milk ducts where it needs to. If your flange is too small, you may have some friction, which causes a lot of pain, which can also inhibit your milk production and your pump output. So I would say that if you're finding that the pump is not emptying you, first check your flanges. Also check your pump parts to make sure that they're in great condition. Additionally, you want to make sure that your pump suction is great. If you're using maybe a pump that you had with the previous baby, the motors do go out. So if you have a lactation consultant near you, I'd recommend to ask them if if they're able to check the suction. We have a suction monitor here in our Cucamonga location where we can assess the suction of your pump to let you know if the pump has good suction or not. So that might be an option too. Okay, let's see here. Great questions, guys. Let's find another question on Instagram. I think I answered this already. I think I answered that. Someone said, am I coming to Philadelphia? We ship to Philadelphia, but am I personally coming? I may. We're considering doing some sort of like Milky Mama tour where we travel across the country and host classes and events and stuff, but that's coming, in the future. But yeah. But if you'd like for our team or me to come and, if you have like a breastfeeding support center or a private practice or anything that you'd like for me to come and educate your moms, I'm more than able to do that depending on my schedule. But we are planning a Milky Mama tour. So you guys let me know, where would you like me to go? I can add it to our list and we'll try to map out our tour so that we can hopefully stop and see everyone. Can you breastfeed and be pregnant? Yeah, in most cases, breastfeeding while pregnant is completely fine. If you are clear to have sexual intercourse while you're pregnant, then you should be clear to breastfeed because they both produce uterine contractions, which is why there might be some concern with breastfeeding or having sexual intercourse while pregnant. So if you have a high-risk pregnancy, I would recommend checking with your OB just to make sure that you're cleared to have those uterine contractions that won't cause any trouble with your pregnancy. But in most cases, if you can have sex, you can breastfeed. Let's see. Oh, this is a great question. Tiffany says, does anyone else have anxiety attacks right before their milk lets down? Sometimes it's really bad. So it sounds like you're suffering from D-MER. And it's very common. And a lot of moms have no idea what it is. They just think that there's something wrong with them. So D-MER is actually characterized by like a feeling of like depression or doom. Some moms might even notice that they get really nauseous or they get very depressed or very anxious, or they have these symptoms right when they have a letdown. Let me know if you've ever experienced those with a heart or a thumbs up. Let me know if that's something that you have experienced. And it's actually called D-MER. There is a name for it, and it's associated with changes in your dopamine levels while you're breastfeeding. It's usually only when your letdown occurs. So what I usually tell moms that I counsel in my office is that if you're experiencing D-MER, some helpful ways is to know that it's temporary, that once your letdown stops, those feelings should go away. And sometimes you can take some supplements like vitamin B6 or things like that can help. But and sometimes it's really bad. So I would recommend, if you're dealing with things like that, you can talk to a perinatal mental health specialist who can give you some tips on how to work through that. But really, it's just a dopamine, the drop in your dopamine, which causes those feelings. And the best way I found to help moms is just to remember that it's temporary and take some deep breaths and remember that it's only for a little bit and this feeling will go away. I hope that helps. Let's see here. How can I tell if my breasts are completely empty when pumping? So the great news is that your breasts are never empty. Your milk factory is constantly working. As long as you are demanding milk, your milk factory is constantly working. So the way I like to think about milk production is, imagine that your breasts and your body is a factory, and they're packaging orders for milk, for the milk orders constantly. If you don't empty your breast, less orders are submitted into their system, and they may, fire or cut back on their workers' hours, or they may, lay off some of their workers, which means that you have less people making milk and fulfilling those orders. But let's say you all of a sudden start demanding more milk and you start sending in more orders to the milk factory by pumping more, nursing more, using the right flange sizes, massaging your breasts, emptying, using hands-on pumping. They may hire more workers and put out orders faster and produce more orders, if that makes sense. So that's how I like to think about milk production. So if you are constantly emptying your breasts, the workers have a job and they'll continue making milk, which means that your breasts are never fully empty because they're constantly making milk. Hope that helps. Let's see. Hi, birdies. Let's see. I think I answered some of these questions. That's a great question, great question, great question. Thank you. What about weight? How long should a mom continue prenatal pills after birth? That's a great question. So what I found is that sometimes the iron levels in the prenatal pills might be a little too much and can cause some gas in baby. But in most cases, if your baby's tolerating it fine and you're not noticing that baby's really gassy, you can continue taking your prenatal pills. Alternatively, you can switch to like a postnatal vitamin or just a daily multivitamin that would suffice. Let's see. Some antibiotics are okay. Just make sure the doctor that they are breastfeeding friendly. Yeah, so that's a great comment. Someone said that antibiotics are okay. Yes, a lot of times I get moms that say that they have to pump and dump because they're taking a certain medication. But realize, moms, that most medications are completely compatible with breastfeeding. And in most cases, you don't have to pump and dump. So before you pump and dump, I would check with the lactation consultant because sometimes our pediatricians they don't research the medication and they just say, if you're breastfeeding, don't give your baby the breast milk. But in most cases, sometimes these medications don't even pass into your breast milk because of the molecular weight is so high. So if you're concerned about a medication, there are lots of resources available. You can reach out to the Infant Risk Center. They're online, and you can also call them. They have a phone number that you can call, and they can tell you if the medication is safe for breastfeeding or not. You can also look up, there's an app called Latch, and you can type in the name of the medication and it'll show you if it's safe for breastfeeding and all of the precautions that may be necessary to use while you're breastfeeding. Or you can ask a lactation consultant. You can call us at Milky Mama. We're happy to help. We can look it up for you and let you know what our resources say in regards to this medication. So in most cases, when you're taking a medication, it should be compatible with breastfeeding. It's very rare that there are medications that you would have to, stop breastfeeding for a few hours or stop breastfeeding, for a few days. It's very rare that you would have to stop breastfeeding altogether or dump your milk out. Let's see. Can exclusively breastfeeding cause irregular periods? Yes, it can. But in most cases, it shouldn't cause. Once you stop breastfeeding, once baby weans, your period should regain and be regular again. What are your thoughts on baby-led weaning? I love baby-led weaning. However, I am a fan of doing what's best and whatever is best for you and your family. So I find that if you are not enjoying breastfeeding anymore and baby's not really enjoying breastfeeding anymore, then you can make the decision for yourself. I'm a firm believer that mom and baby should be able to make their own decision of when they're ready to stop breastfeeding and not allow any outside sources like your doctor, your partner, your family, your friends to make that decision for you. So I'm all for baby-led weaning. I'm all for weaning whenever you and baby feel ready. I'll support you either way. I just want you to make that decision for yourself and not allow anyone else to make the decision for you. How many ounces per feeding should baby consume via bottle while mama is at work? So the rule of thumb is baby should have 1 to 1.5 ounces for every hour that you're away or every hour of feeding. So if they're eating every 2 hours, then the rule of thumb is that baby should have about 2 to 3 ounces. And that should be given via PACE bottle feeding, which means that baby should have, 1 ounce every 3 to 5 minutes. So if baby is if you're noticing that your baby is drinking like a 2 ounce bottle in 1 minute, it's very likely that baby's being fed too fast. So I recommend finding a nipple that allows you to feed baby 1 ounce every 3 to 5 minutes. My favorite nipple for this, which is completely not sponsored, it's the bottle that I use with my baby, was the Dr. Brown. And we used the preemie nipple, and we never moved up because it just wasn't necessary for us to move up. It allows the perfect flow, and it's the perfect shape for babies that are breastfeeding so that they can go back from breast to bottle without any confusion. Hope that helps. Did you mean, okay, wait, sorry. Should I pump? I answered that question already about pumping at night. Is my letdown supposed to hurt? You know, again, pain is subjective. It shouldn't hurt to where you're in excruciating pain, but you know, some moms have described their letdown as being like a tingly or sharp feeling, and that's normal because again, everybody's different. But it shouldn't be painful. I can't find a flange smaller than a 24, but I need smaller. Where would I find a smaller size? Amazon. Amazon has flange sizing for, I think all the way down to maybe 11 or 13 millimeter, depending on the type of pump that you use. So I would check with Amazon. Let's see. That was a great question. What is a nursing strike? A nursing strike is when your baby doesn't want to nurse for an extended period of time. So usually it lasts anywhere from about 1 to, I've seen it last up to a week. Sometimes if they're teething or if they have like an ear infection. But that's what a nursing strike is. And a lot of moms might think that it's baby weaning, but it's actually a strike. It can be very confusing and frustrating. So if you're going through a nursing strike, I recommend that you continue to offer the breast, but don't force baby to nurse because you don't want baby to associate any negative feelings with nursing. And I'd also recommend that if baby is not nursing and is just refusing at this time, that you still continue to pump or hand express so that you're maintaining your supply. How much water should you be drinking while breastfeeding? That's a wonderful question. I get that question often. And the answer to that question is you should drink to thirst or until your urine is pale yellow. So you don't have to drink, 9 million gallons of water. In fact, if you overhydrate, it can actually decrease your supply. So just drink to thirst. Drink until your urine is nice and clear. So if you're looking in the toilet and your urine is like amber or dark yellow, then you need to drink more water. But you don't need to drink, tons of water. Water doesn't make milk. But if you are dehydrated, it can affect your milk supply. But drinking more water doesn't make more milk, if that makes sense. Hope that helps. I appreciated all the information you give us, motivate us, and give us so much from you. Congrats and keep up the good work. Oh, thank you so much. That makes me feel good. My son is 3 weeks old. When do you recommend to start pumping? So I don't recommend that you pump until you have breastfeeding well established. So if you're still having trouble breastfeeding and getting a good latch, I recommend that you kind of fix those issues first before starting to pump. And then additionally, pumping isn't necessary until you plan on being away from baby for more than a couple of hours. Some moms like to pump early on to help to increase their supply and start building their stash. That is completely up to you. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. Some moms swear by it and just really like to have that emergency stash. It's completely up to you. But I do recommend that you get breastfeeding well established first before you start introducing the pump. Let's see. Audrey says, I'm so discouraged to breastfeed after being in breastfeeding groups. So many moms have so many problems. So, breastfeeding is hard. Being a mom and a parent is hard in general. And I recommend that you find a nice support group that is supportive. That way, if you do have an issue, that there are answers and support. So this is a shameless plug, but I encourage you to check out the official Milky Mama Lactation Support Group. It's amazing. Everyone in there is really, really supportive. I can honestly say all the moms, all the admins are supportive and educated in breastfeeding, whether they're NICU nurses or lactation consultants. Everyone there is really helpful, and it's a great place to get support. So if you're looking for a supportive breastfeeding group on Facebook, look up the official Milky Mama Lactation Support Group and join, and we'll add you. Additionally, if you are looking for local breastfeeding support and you're in Southern California, come to the Milky Mama store in Rancho Cucamonga on Mondays. And we have our free, it's called the Milky Mama Breast Friends, where we all sit around with our babies and breastfeed and ask questions. And it's a really fun and exciting and supportive environment. Okay, let's see. I answered that question. Let's see. This is a great question. So Boo Girly says, my breasts don't refill fast enough for my chunky man. He gets frustrated and he gets formula after almost every feed. Not sure how to change that. So how do I say this? Okay, so when you breastfeed, the best thing that you can do is to continue to demand milk from your body. So keep this in mind. If you breastfeed your baby and then he doesn't get enough milk, and then you supplement with formula, and then you do nothing else, your body thinks that it's doing a fantastic job. So every time you give baby a bottle of anything, every time this baby's eating and it's not directly from you, you still need to pump or stimulate your milk production so that your body knows, hey, he's eating right now, okay? I also want you to keep in mind that the best thing to do if baby is nursing at the breast and is still hungry is offer the other breast or continue to offer the breast. Because the more he stimulates your breast, the more milk you'll make. What can happen when we supplement with formula unnecessarily after is that baby can get fuller off of formula because formula is a little more filling and takes longer to digest than breast milk, which means that the next time that he goes to nurse, or he may go longer without nursing, which then decreases your supply even more. So then you go to breastfeed him and then he's frustrated and then you give more formula. And then eventually the amount of formula that you give starts to outweigh the amount of breast milk. Now, don't get me wrong, formula is amazing. It saved lots of babies' lives. So I would never, ever talk bad about formula because there are tons of moms that have to supplement. But what I'm saying is that if we supplement unnecessarily, and when is supplementation necessary? I think supplementation is necessary if baby's diaper output is low or dropping, baby's, not meeting developmental milestones. I don't think supplementation is necessary if baby is crying after feeding, but having enough wet diapers. If baby does not weigh as much as the other babies his or her age, but is still having steady weight gain. If baby's nursing frequently, those are not signs that your milk supply is low. So we really, before we start supplementing, we really want to make sure that baby is actually having intake issues before we start introducing formula. Another great way that I love to supplement, whether it's formula or donor milk, is with a supplemental nursing system. Basically, it's a little tube that you would insert one end in the bottle, and then the other end you would attach to your breast, or you would latch baby on and thread it into the corner of baby's mouth. And baby will be getting supplemented while they're at your breast, which is a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone. Baby's getting supplemented at your breast at the same time as nursing, which is providing extra stimulation to your breast to increase and improve your milk supply. Hope that helps. Okay, let's see. When I nurse, sorry, I'm trying to find another question. I think I answered that. When is it too late to try relactation? It's never too late to try relactation. A fun fact is that grandmas can even relactate if they wanted to. So whenever you feel like you want to try to relactate, you can. Keep in mind, though, that the longer that it's been since you've nursed or provided any breast stimulation, the longer it will take to relactate. Let's see, another question. I answered that already. I think I answered a lot of your questions. You guys have some really good questions. And this is a great question. Okay, so this is from PJ05. Is it possible that some moms won't produce a lot no matter what you do? So yes, if you have certain conditions, it's possible that you just will not produce a lot of milk. These conditions are like insufficient glandular tissue. So if you don't physically have enough glands to produce enough milk for your baby, then it's very likely that you may have difficulty with your milk production. How do you tell if you have IGT? It usually requires a assessment by a lactation consultant. Sometimes we can do an ultrasound, well, not us, but sometimes we can have your physician do an ultrasound that can see the glandular tissue. But some signs are, and again, these are not diagnostic signs. These are just some signs that moms with IGT have noticed, is that their breasts have a wide space, that their breasts are tubular, meaning that they are like long and maybe thin, that they notice that their breasts didn't enlarge or grow while they were pregnant, or even while they were going through puberty, or they have like an abnormally large areola. Those are some signs that it could be an IGT diagnosis, but of course we have to see and assess your situation to see if that's the actual cause. So in that sense, yeah, and sometimes, you know, if you have that condition, it may be possible that you just won't produce a lot of milk. But it doesn't mean that. And also sometimes with moms with PCOS, sometimes it can affect their milk production. But I've also seen the other side where moms with PCOS have an oversupply. So it's important to know that every journey is different. And I do recommend that if you're concerned about your milk production, check with the lactation consultant, and know that any amount of breast milk is beneficial, even if it's just a drop. Any amount of breast milk is beneficial for baby. So just give baby whatever you can give, and know that you're doing an amazing, amazing job. Okay. Let's see. Here's Brendan Tingles. What is the best way to power pump? When increasing supply, should you pump right after the baby feeds or wait then pump? So the best way to power pump is by you pump for 20 minutes and then you take a break for 10 minutes and then you pump for 10 minutes and then you take a break for 10 minutes and then you pump for 10 minutes. And that takes about an hour, and you do that about once a day. Usually most moms start seeing results within about 3 days. I also recommend if you don't have time to sit down for an hour and pump, you can do walk-by pumping. So you would empty your breasts as you normally would throughout the day, so whether you're nursing or pumping, and then you put your pump in an area that you frequent. So like maybe in your kitchen, or maybe, you know, in your living room, wherever you walk by the most. Every time you walk by your pump, you stop and pump for about 5 to 10 minutes. That's a great way to kind of sneak in some pumping sessions. And then in regards to should you pump after, I recommend that you pump right after nursing. If you wait longer than about 45 minutes to an hour, you can start cutting into the next feeding's milk, which can frustrate baby when baby goes to the breast. So I like to pump right after, because then your body is already like in the mode of breast emptying per se. And then when you pump after, then you start sending additional signals to your body to make more milk. So I usually like to pump right after, even if nothing comes out. Remember, the point right now is to stimulate milk production. So even if nothing comes out, I still recommend that you pump. Hope that helps. My baby nurses better for my left breast than my right. How can I fix this? You know, that's very common. And the reason it's common is because nothing on our body is symmetrical. So it's very common that maybe your left nipple and areola is shaped a little different than your right, which may mean that it's easier for baby to latch on one side than the other. If you have that issue, I'd recommend maybe changing baby's position, or just working to see what position works best to latch onto the opposite breast. Any advice on exercising while breastfeeding, Justine says. So you can exercise while you're breastfeeding. However, I recommend that you start slow. So for instance, if you've never ran a marathon or have done anything, you know, like super strenuous, I don't recommend that you just automatically start and go to some boot camp. I recommend that you gradually start and increase the intensity of your exercise. However, if you're used to working out very rigorously, then it shouldn't be an issue. Keep in mind that when you do exercise, a lot of times you might be burning protein and losing electrolytes when you're sweating. So it's very important that you replace those after your workout session to make sure that you're staying hydrated and that you are replacing your protein levels. I don't think a breastfed baby can be overfed. So a breastfed baby can't be overfed at the breast. That is absolutely true because babies can pace themselves at the breast. They can unlatch when they're done. You know, they can say when they're done. However, a breastfed baby can be overfed via bottle because they're not controlling their intake. You are. So a lot of times we'll fill a 5-ounce bottle and baby will drink it because drinking and sucking is comforting for baby. Or we'll fill a 3-ounce bottle, they'll drink it really fast, and then maybe it was a little too much for them. So then they'll spit up after, and then they might cry because they don't know how to communicate. And then just by instinct, when our babies cry, we feed them more. And what happens is we start stretching their stomach. So once we stretch their stomach, next feeding, they might need 4 ounces, and then a week later, they might need 5, and then they might need 6. And then eventually it becomes very, very difficult for you to keep up with their demands. And their demands aren't based on their caloric needs. At this point, they're actually based on their stomach capacity, which has been stretched. So you're right when you say that you can't overfeed a breastfed baby at the breast, but you can definitely overfeed a breastfed baby at the bottle. Let's see. How do I know if I'm using the right size flanges while pumping? So pumping just like nursing should be comfortable. So if you're noticing that your nipple is rubbing up against the inside of your flange, or if you're noticing that your areola is getting sucked into the flange, if you notice maybe a white ring around your areola when you're done pumping, or that your nipple is inflamed, those are some signs that your flange is the incorrect size. Your nipple shouldn't be rubbing and your areola shouldn't be getting sucked in. So your nipple should just be moving freely in and out of the pump. That's a great way to know that your flange is the correct size. If you are interested, we do offer flange consultations on our website. You just go to our website, www.milky-mama.com, click on the services button, and from there you can see all the services that we offer, including flange sizing. I keep reading that mom's diet shouldn't have any effect on baby, but I swear when I eat onions or beans, my baby suffers for a day or two. Do you find that there are any foods that most moms should be careful with? So I don't think that there's a blanket of foods that moms should avoid while they're breastfeeding. Of course, there are maybe herbs or medications or things that can affect your milk supply. But when it comes to like beans and chocolate and things like that, I don't recommend that you avoid it unless your specific baby has an issue. So, you know, your baby has trouble with onions and beans. My baby didn't. So because of that, I chose to eat them. But you may not, because you notice that your baby might have an issue with that. So I don't recommend that you avoid any specific food unless your baby has an issue with it. Okay? Hope that makes sense. So do breastfed babies get full? They absolutely do get full. And they'll let you know when they're full, which is usually by unlatching. They'll fall asleep. They'll be milk drunk. A great way to determine if baby is satisfied with the feeding is their hands. If their hands are nice and relaxed as opposed to clenched, chances are they're relaxed. You can also look at their little faces. If their brows are like scrunched up or if their face looks tense, it may mean that they may have gone to bed or may are still a little hungry. But if they're nice and relaxed, then chances are you're doing just fine. Again, guys, the most important or the easiest way to determine if baby is getting enough milk is their diaper output. If they're peeing and pooping enough, then you're doing just fine. It can't come out if it's not going in. Can fenugreek dry up your milk supply? So I've seen a lot of moms that have reported that fenugreek has caused lots of issues, whether it's decreasing your milk supply or causing gas or colic in baby. It's definitely a possibility, which is why we chose not to use it in any of our products. However, I have seen moms that have had great results with fenugreek. So, for me, I choose to avoid it, but every mom is different. So it can decrease your supply. There have been reports of moms knowing that fenugreek has decreased their supply, and then there have been moms that have reported fenugreek has increased their supply. So, for me, because there's so many risk factors and there's so many possibilities that it could, I choose to avoid it, and we choose not to use it in any of our products for that reason. Let's see. What are your thoughts on coffee while breastfeeding? You can safely drink coffee while breastfeeding, of course, as long as baby doesn't have any negative reactions. Some babies can do just fine with caffeine, and other babies are up all night and wired with any little bit of caffeine. So it's based on your baby. But research shows that moms can drink about 3 to 5 cups a day of coffee. I don't really recommend that much, but usually that's depending on the type of coffee, of course. If you're drinking like super strong espresso, it may be less than that. But I say play it by ear, pay attention to your baby and see how your baby responds after drinking a cup of coffee. And if you notice that baby is just kind of wired, then coffee may not be for you. Let's see. Need to get back to work and baby won't take a bottle from anyone. What to do? You can try feeding baby outward. So instead of like holding baby in a cradle position while you're trying to feed the bottle, hold baby so that they're facing outward, like in a seated position, and offer the bottle that way. If that doesn't work, you can also try to do that with movement. So you're holding baby outward and walk around the house and try to offer the bottle. Sometimes you have to like warm the nipple a bit. Warming the nipple can certainly help because your skin is warm when baby nurses. And keep trying. Sometimes you need to leave the house. If baby can see you or smell you, it's usually unlikely that they'll take the bottle because they know that you make perfectly temperatured delicious milk, and they usually won't want it from a bottle. So you might need to leave the house or the room. Can you drink beer while you're breastfeeding? So you can drink beer while you're breastfeeding. Of course, it is your personal preference. Some moms would rather not, and that's completely fine. However, the amount of alcohol that transfers into your breast milk is minimal. It's less than what's in a glass of orange juice. So when you're drinking, it's not really about the alcohol. It's really about if you can safely care for your baby. So if you're drinking and you can barely stand and you can't safely hold your baby, or you're a risk to roll over on your baby, then you definitely shouldn't be breastfeeding. But if you're safe and you're coherent and you're able to carefully to care for your baby, then you're fine to nurse. Let's see. I asked this, but I just joined. Is there any way for baby to transfer milk from their breasts better? A great latch. Also, you can compress your breasts while baby's latched on, and that can help them out by emptying, you're basically helping them. And then if you're noticing that your baby's suck is not strong, or if their suck is like irregular or erratic, you can work with a lactation consultant to do some suck training so that they can get baby's suck more strong and regulated. Could you post those sites and numbers on the page? Yes, we'll post. I'll probably post it in our Instagram stories for if you have questions about what medications are safe to take while you're breastfeeding. I'll post that on our Instagram stories and our Facebook stories, so that way you can screenshot those and save those for later, okay? Let's see. How do you know if baby's getting enough after feeds? I kind of answered that. As long as baby is nice and relaxed and is having enough wet diapers, then baby is getting plenty of milk, okay? I think that's it, guys. Let me see. You don't need to pump and dump when you're drinking unless you're super intoxicated. Right, exactly. And then again, it's all up to your personal preference. I never really recommend that you dump your milk because you worked hard to make it. If you're not comfortable with giving baby the milk that you made while you were drinking alcohol, you can use it for a milk bath. You can dilute half with milk that you pumped while you weren't drinking, or you can use it for breast milk jewelry, but I never recommend dumping your breast milk. What is the best way to get your milk to come in after giving birth if you want baby to be strictly breastfed? I recommend the best way to get your milk to come in is to latch baby on as soon as possible. Ideally within the first hour of giving birth, you want to do skin to skin and latch baby on as soon as possible. That's the best way to ensure that your milk will come in as scheduled and that you'll be able to have a great breastfeeding journey. If for some reason you have to be separated from baby, if baby is in the NICU or anything, then you can start pumping right away. And again, whenever you can latch baby on, whenever you're able to, then do that as soon as possible. And then breastfeed on demand. It's very common for your baby to want to nurse very frequently in the beginning of your breastfeeding journey. So just breastfeed whenever baby wants to. And that's a great way to help maintain your supply. The mini pill dried up my milk supply. Yeah, again, mini pill can definitely cause some negative effects of any hormones. So, I'm not saying don't take it. I'm just saying, do your research and find the best option for you and your family. Let's see. This is an interesting question. Asking for a friend. I told her about your products and she just had her baby, but her question is, she lives in Colorado and sometimes she partakes in edible treats. She wants to know how long does she have to wait before nursing her baby again for it to wear off out of her system, or is there any up-to-date studies on that type of research? So there isn't much research about I'm going to assume marijuana while you're breastfeeding. The research that we do have is that THC, it actually stays and is stored in the fatty tissue of your breasts for about 2 weeks, which is a long time. We don't know the effects on baby. We don't know how much is transferred into your milk. So because of that, I normally recommend to avoid it solely because there isn't much research on if it's safe or not. Additionally, there are some studies or some instances where, if let's say your baby, you do partake and then you breastfeed, and then if some reason baby does have THC in their system, there may be some legal ramifications for that. So because of that, I generally don't recommend it because of that reason. Okay. I think that's it, guys. Instagram's going to kick me off in about 1.5 minutes. So I hope that you guys enjoyed and got lots of value and lots of information from our Q&A Monday. I'll be back every Monday to answer your breastfeeding questions for you. If there was a question that I didn't answer, you can always send us a message, a DM, an email, and we'll be happy to answer that for you guys, okay? But thank you so much for tuning in. Also, today is the last day to apply for the Milky Mama Brand Ambassador Program. If you need the application, go to our website. It's on a banner on top of our website. Today's the very last day, and then we won't be accepting any more applications until next month. So apply. It's free to apply, and it's a lot of fun. Okay? Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on Monday. And if you have any suggestions on topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, please let us know. We're always listening. You guys have got this. You are amazing, and you can do this, okay? So be confident and be confident in your breastfeeding journey, and know that you're an amazing mom and you're doing an amazing job. Okay, guys, I'll see you soon. Take care.